Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Like he said, this is my last Sabbath. You won't have to listen to me anymore. You can not jump for joy too much. Just wait till I leave. Okay. I wanted to wish all those fathers in the room a happy Father's Day, since tomorrow our nation will be celebrating Father's Day. A few years back, the message I'm going to give to you is basically a life story that my father, our father, taught me one morning on Mount Rainier. Some of you know I came from Washington State. I wasn't born there. I didn't grow up there, but I spent the last 18 years hiking all over Mount Rainier and the mountain ranges all over there, taking pictures wherever I can. I've been published a few times, but that is only because God has given me so many different opportunities to take pictures and share them with so many people and the congregations, especially around Washington, that couldn't do what I did at that time, was able to go hiking, was able to go up into the mountains. Obviously, with my big truck, I can just about go anywhere up there. So it was really nice. But each year, around Labor Day, there's a camp out for the Tacoma congregation. One of our members lives and backs up right to the National Forest, right behind Mount Rainier. So the camp is roughly about 75 to 100 people that come up on Saturday. We have services up there, the whole ball of wax. But next Sunday, my body clock gets me up right at 4 o'clock every day without a chance. I don't have to set an alarm anymore. So I figured, what am I going to do for the next 3 hours while people are starting to wake up? So I have this bright idea. I am so close to Mount Rainier, I'm going to go take some pictures. I've always wanted to go to Reflection Lake. It's a beautiful lake. When it's perfectly still, you can get a beautiful mirror image of Mount Rainier, such as you can't even tell where the horizon is, except for you see the line of the trees in the water. So I tell Laura, wake her up, which is not always a nice thing to do that early in the morning. I'm going to Mount Rainier. Be careful, take plenty of water. That's all I heard. Have fun. So grab my camera bag, loaded it up with some protein bars, a couple of bottles of water, obviously my camera, and an extra sweatshirt. Because even on Labor Day, up in the mountains and Mount Rainier, there's still snow, and it can get cold. So I headed out towards Reflection Lake. Got there very early in the morning, about the same time the sun was breaking over the horizon. I'm like, this is perfect. Sun is going to be up. I'm going to get that nice glare off the water. Going to get the steam off the water in the picture, Mount Rainier in the background. And guess what? It's all fogged in. Absolutely nothing. I could not even see the mountain, which is very unusual. So just shows you can plan and plan all you want, but God gives you what he gives you, okay? It's like, okay, I'll take a picture of this. And when I got the photos back, it was a beautiful blue. Beautiful blue. The trees were solidly black in reflection off the lake, but obviously I didn't get the shot I wanted. No big deal. So I headed up to Paradise, because lo and behold, that early in the morning, it's the only place that's open that you could use the restroom. So I'm up there, and I'm like, well, you know what? Myrtle Falls is right up here. Grabbed the camera, took off for Myrtle Falls, got to Myrtle Falls, spent a little time there. I'm like, well, let's just keep going up the Skyline Trail. It's a beautiful day. It's early. Nobody's going to miss me at all at the camp. I'll just go take some more pictures. So it's a 3-mile hike up the Panorama Point on the Skyline Trail. And it goes up to, you're starting roughly about, 5,200 feet, I think, and ending up at 6,800 feet and 3.5 miles, or 3.3 miles. I figured I can make it. All right, I've been hiking up here quite a bit, and back in my mind, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things, with Christ who strengthens me. Yeah, okay, we'll do it. And yes, I'm all by myself, me and the camera. That's it. So, we all know that God will give us the strength to accomplish just about anything. All we need to do is ask. Well, what if we overextend ourselves? Kind of get where I'm going here. I took off this trail. I started going, we pray, we ask God for forgiveness to help us through tough situations. This didn't start out to be a tough situation at all. I just kept going and going. Oh, what's around the next bend? What's around the next bend? What's around the next bend? This is pretty. I just got so many shots. Lo and behold, I got to a point on the trail where I got tired. I just kept going. And it was right at the intersection of the Golden Gate Trail with the Skyline Trail. So the Golden Gate Trail runs right up a gully, right from Paradise, straight up. The only problem is it's got a lot of switchbacks. When I say a lot, there's a lot. There's a lot of switchbacks going back and forth, back and forth. So I decided to just sit down on a rock there. And little did I know that I would need the strength from God and the company of a stranger whose name was Mark, to help me down from that mountain that day. And I tell you this story today to bring out one very important part. Even though there's a lot of lessons in this story, this one point, that God can bring anyone at any time into our lives to teach us what he wants us to learn. But before I bring my story to a close, let's first consider some of the ways God has helped and taught others. Because the way that God worked then is often the same way he works now. So let's go ahead and turn on our Bibles and let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings 5. And this is the story of Nahum. 2 Kings 5, and we're going to start reading right from verse 1. I'm going to be reading mostly out of the ESV today, so it may sound just a little different. Nahum, the commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and in high favor, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. Now the Syrians, on one of their raids, had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Nahum's wife. She said to her mistress, "Would that my lord, with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." So Nahum went and told his lord thus, and so spoke the little girl from the land of Israel. So all that's mentioned in the Bible is a little girl. So all you young ones, pay attention. This was a little girl. No name, no nothing. A little girl. Okay, verse 5 says, "And the king of Syria said, 'Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel.' So he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothes. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, 'When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you Nahum, my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy.' And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, 'Am I God to kill and to make alive? What this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me.' But then Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes. He sent to the king, saying, 'Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come now to me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel.' So Nahum came with his horses and his chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, 'Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean.' But Nahum was angry and went away." The contemporary English version says Nahum stomped off grumbling. And can you imagine a grown man, an army officer, stomping off, grumbling because this man wouldn't help him, saying, "Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to meet and stand and call upon the name of the Lord, his God and wave his hands over the place and cure the leper. Verse 12, are not Aben and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. But his servant, and that's all it says here, his servant, meaning Nahum's servant, came there and said to him, my father, is it a great word the prophet has spoken to you? Will you not do it? Has he actually said to you, wash and be clean? So he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and was clean. So here we have a mighty man who commanded armies, not once, but had 2 opportunities from God to listen and to be king, to be clean. Sometimes I think when I read this story, does the phrase, kids say the darndest things? Or, out of the mouth of babes comes to mind. Because it starts out with a little child. God uses our children to open our eyes, to show us that the answers we are seeking are often the simpler things of life. All we have to do is listen. The second way we're going to explore, go ahead and turn to the book of Esther. God often uses family members. He uses family members to teach us. This sometimes is the hardest. It's the hardest for some of us to take because we're too close. We tend to butt heads too much. But the story of Esther, we're going to start in verse 2. Just on a sidebar, chronologically, is actually the last written material in the Old Testament. The book was generally written between 516 and 506 BC. Esther 2, verse 7 says, he was bringing up Hadash, that is Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So we see she doesn't even have her mother or father, she has her uncle. You know, after Esther had been taken to the court of the harem, chapter 2 and verse 11, it gives us some insight to the relationship that Mordecai and Esther had. Verse 11 goes, and every day Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her. So they already seem to have this strong family bond. And we know in chapter 3, as you read farther down, there's a plot against the Jews. Haman decides this evil plot, and he tells the king, I'm going to add to your treasury if we do this. So a decree goes out, a decree is made, on a certain day, all the Jews were to be killed in the kingdom. Let's skip and go down to Esther chapter 4. It says, when Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on a sackcloth and ashes and went out to the midst of the city, and he cried out with a loud voice, a bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate in sackcloth. So here we have Mordecai at the king's gate wanting to see Esther. Esther sends one of her handmaidens down, talks to him, comes back. This is what Haman is upset about. She sends clothes. He refuses the clothes. There's a back and forth. Verse 6, he says, Hatach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told her all that had happened to him and the exact sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasury. But as we look down, verse 9, he says, and Hadash went and told Esther that what Mordecai had said. Then Esther told Hadash and commanded him to go to Mordecai and say, all the king's servants and the people of the king's providence know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but a law to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter, so that he may live. But as for me, I have not been called to come into the king these 30 days. And they told Mordecai that what Esther had said. Verse 13 says, then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not think to yourself that the king's palace you will escape any more than any of the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise from the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. You know, sometimes family members have a way of getting through to us. Plain and simple. You know, it's hard to hear, but sometimes the straight talk is what we need. And sometimes, you know, God sparks that straight talk from a family member. What if Mordecai didn't say these words to Esther? What if she said, you're an old fool. I'm the queen. This won't happen. To God, our position, our earthly position, our earthly power, influence means little. What truly matters is how we use them. Do we use our place to serve others or to serve ourselves? Remember the two greatest commandments. What's the second one? Love your neighbor as yourself. It's underlying throughout the whole Bible. No matter who sits in power, we must never forget that God reigns over all. Esther's bond with Mordecai rested on the foundation of godly wisdom and respect. And even as queen, she continued to heed his advice. And as we read continue reading the story in Esther 4, verse 15, says, then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go and gather all the Jews to be found in Shushan and hold a fast on my behalf. So they were all to fast for 3 days and 3 nights for Esther to give her strength. Chapter 5, verse 1 says, on the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner courts of the king's palace in front of the king's quarters while the king was sitting on his royal throne. Inside the throne room, opposite the entrance to the palace, and when the king saw Esther, Queen Esther, standing in the court, she won favor in his sight, and he held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter, and the king said to her, what is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? I shall give you even to the half of my kingdom. Due to the strong relationship that Mordecai and Esther had, you can read the rest of the story. The Jews were saved. Haman got his just reward. But yet that family tie, the bond that never breaks, family, stood strong. And Esther heeded the advice of Mordecai. Let's look at another way. This is a little unusual. God uses unlikely things to teach us. We all know the story of Jonah. You know, God tells him to go to Nineveh. Jonah ran from God. Like that's even possible, right? He goes and he runs. He goes to Joppa so he can, you know, get on a boat and go down to Tarshish. You know, big storm comes up. Jonah tells his shipmates that God's mad at him. So they throw him overboard. Likely story, okay? Jonah 1, verse 17. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. What happens when you're in the belly of a fish for 3 days and 3 nights? Besides stinking very bad, you pray. So in chapter 2, verse 1, we have Jonah's prayer. It says, Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, praying, I called out to the Lord out of the distress and answered me. Out of the belly of the soul I cried, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the sea, and the flood surrounded me, and all the waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight, yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. The waters closed in over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped about my head. At the roots of the mountains, I went down to the land. Those bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought me up, my life, from the pit, O Lord my God. Then my life was fading away. I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to me into your holy temple. Those who pray regard evil idols, forsake their hope of steadfast love. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, with sacrifice to you, what I have vowed I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. And the Lord spoke to the fish, and he vomited Jonah out of upon dry land. This shows when Jonah turned back to God and decided to do what God had told him to do. And what did God do? He showed him mercy. Okay, here you go. Now go to Nineveh. Has God ever brought you a big fish? Has he ever brought a big fish into your life? That moment that you needed to be taught something, or you needed to understand something, to respect, teach you humility. How did you respond? These lessons tend to stay with us even harder and harder because we tend to look to God and we look to his mercy. This is one of those areas where I could call God decided to use a spiritual 2x4 on me. Us hard-headed Italians, that's what happens. Sometimes it's the only way we learn. What about Balaam? We know that God used a donkey in the case of Balaam to teach him. 3 times. 3 times this donkey saw the angel of the Lord. The first time, the donkey turned aside. The second time, the donkey pushed himself against the wall and crushed Balaam's foot. Imagine the frustration in Balaam's voice. He didn't know what was going on. He couldn't see. He was blinded by what he wanted. How many times do we get blinded by what we want? We want this, God. But yet God knows, but God knows this is better for us. So he wants us to go this way. Go ahead and turn to Numbers 22. This is in the middle of the story of Balaam. Numbers 22, verse 26. It says, Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with a staff. Balaam was blinded what he wanted. He couldn't see the angel of the Lord because he wasn't focusing on the angel of the Lord. He was focusing on what he wanted. He couldn't see. It's like sometimes you get that glare in front of you and you can't see on the road what's in front of you until you have to slam on your brakes. It's the same way. Verse 28 says, Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and he said to Balaam, What have I done that you have struck me these 3 times? This is the first recorded instance of a donkey talking, by the way. Kids, Shrek was not the first recorded. This was it right here. It's not normal for donkeys to speak, but Balaam carries on a conversation with his donkey, and still has no clue. He says, and Balaam said to his donkey, because you have made a fool of me, I wish I had a sword in my hand, for then I would kill you. And the donkey said to Balaam, I am not your donkey. Have I not been your donkey on which you have ridden all your life long to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way? And he said, no. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in front of him with the drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down and fell on his face. The aha moment. Thank you, Father, I now see. It's the aha moment. Balaam was so narrowly focused on what he wanted, he completely missed what God was trying to show him. How often do we do the same? Dismissing something simple because it's usually or doesn't fit our expectations. God used a donkey to speak to Balaam and open his eyes to the truth. Sometimes God uses donkeys for us, to speak to us. It may come in many different forms, a human being, but yet it still happens. Are we listening? Do we expect God to go our way, or are we listening to what God wants us in our way? Back to Mount Rainier. I made it to that spot on the Golden Gate Bridge, on the Golden Gate Trail, where the Skyline Trail meets. There's a big rock. I sit down on this rock, tired, wet from sweat. I decided to open my backpack, get some water, get some food, because I know I had a mile to go to the Panorama Point. Beautiful point. Unbelievable view from there. Guess what? No food, no water, no sweatshirt. You see, when I was down at the lake, I'm like, I'm going to be here right by the car. Why do I need to carry all this extra weight? Just going to take it out of my backpack. Didn't pay no attention to it. When I got up to Paradise, took it all out. So I had a decision to make. Yes, I'm dehydrated, but yet I always wanted to be up to Panorama Point. So up the trail comes this guy, just walking, Sunday stroll. Mind if I sit down? Yeah, sure, go ahead. We start chatting, found out his name's Mark. He wasn't feeling very good, so he decides to take a little stroll while his buddy hikes up to Camp Muir. Wait a minute, you're taking a stroll up Mount Rainier, one of the most dangerous areas in North America, where one slip, one fall, and you're not feeling good. And all he had was a small little bottle of water. He convinced me to keep going, the extra mile. Well, God knew that if I turned back and went down the Golden Gate Trail, I probably wouldn't learn the lesson I needed to learn that day. So we hiked for a while. Our trails split. His went up to Camp Muir. Mine went out to Panorama Point. Across the snow bridge, which is dangerous. I got out to Panorama Point, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking and going, wow, this is pretty, even though there's a lot of fog. I took one step down off the steps, and my heel hit a patch of water, and I slipped and fell. Slammed down on my right wrist, skinned up, banged up my right knee. Nobody around. I couldn't call for help. I was a half a mile off the nearest trail. I sat there, sat up, and go, God, how stupid am I? I've gone hiking many times. Many times I've forgotten my water. Many times I've gotten back, never even thought about it. This time was different. Here I'm dehydrated, miles away from anybody, and all I have is the back end of a camera lens, which holds 1 ounce of water. And there was a stream nearby. So here I am sipping water as fast as I can, knowing that I have to get up and I have to walk. So I started hiking back as quickly as I can. Now, mind you, my trip out to Panorama Point was maybe a half a mile. Up to Lake Camp Mirror was maybe about another 2.2 miles. Lo and behold, I crossed the snow bridge, come back to the trail, and guess who was coming back the other way? It was Mark. Mark, hey, I need your help. He goes, yeah, just keep coming, follow me. He didn't know what happened. So by this time, my leg is swelling up. My hand, if I would let it go down, would swell up. So, okay, I know I got a problem. I got to hike with a hand in the air. And every time I would catch up to him, here comes a group up the trail, so we'd have to step to the side. They would pass him first, he would start going, then they would pass me. Hey, how you doing? I'm fine, I'm dehydrated. Yeah, okay, just keep going, you're fine. This happened twice. I get to the Golden Gate Trail, and he starts going down the Golden Gate Trail, and I'm standing there going, I know that way, I don't know this way. He says, just follow me, everything will be fine. How many times we get to a crossroads in our life? That we know that this way we've been here, but this way is where God wants us to go. But we still have to have that blind faith to go this way. So I went after Mark down the trail, and there comes a point in the trail where it was 5 foot tall. You have to turn around, walk, step down. I didn't know that because I'd never been there before. So I'm looking down there, he keeps walking, I'm looking down, no, I'm gonna go back this way. No, I'm gonna go this way. I did this like 3 times, back and forth, back and forth. Major decisions in our life. God's called us, that pull to go back sometimes is really great. We have to just keep going forward. Eventually I made it down, and we're in that switchback area, back and forth, back and forth. Mark was never more than 10 feet below me the whole time. He says, just keep coming, just keep coming. Oh, I was tired, dehydrated. He got to the flat area before I did, and he, started going like crazy because it's flat and you're not on the hill. I hit the flat area, I'm like, had to take a breath, and he's still going. More people are coming up, more groups. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm really dehydrated. Oh, keep going. Nobody offered me any water at all. And I'm starting going, whoa, this is hard. I passed an older couple. I go, how you doing? I says, oh, the older gentleman said, you look terrible. I said, I'm severely dehydrated. Hey, we got an extra bottle of water. Here you go. I said, you guys are going up. You're going to need this. Nope, you need it more than I do. Somebody gave me a hand up, gave me some water. I had to swallow my pride and take it. And all the way, Mark keeps telling me, Joe, keep going, keep going. There was a point where the clouds broke up and the sun shined right into the valley, right where Mark was standing. He goes, look up. This beautiful sunshine coming through just after the clouds. The land still had water on it. It was just glistening. I was so tired I couldn't take out my camera and take a picture. He said, keep coming, you're almost there. Right then, he reached the end. He said, keep coming, there's people here that'll help you. Never saw him after that. Finally got there, and sure enough, park rangers were there. I must have drank down a half a gallon of water while I was sitting there before they actually helped me get back down to the parking lot. It was a hard lesson. Dehydrated, hungrier, but I was wiser. Not that the fact that I needed to carry and keep water with me, that's only one lesson. But God brought someone into my life that I least expected, a stranger called Mark. When we think we can do all things through Christ, who strengthens us, sometimes that strength comes from without. It comes from somebody else to give us a hand. But when we pray to God and ask for his help, we need to be willing to accept whatever help God has given us.